Hey everybody, welcome back to the US Soccer Podcast. David Goss with you here. We have a loaded show coming up once again. We are in Austin, Texas for the MLS All-Star Week. We talked a little bit about it last week with Max Arfston, but we're going to dig in even more on the Gold Cup Summer, the experience, and All-Star Game coming up with Sebastian Berhalter. He was so excited to see some of his favorites once again here in Austin. You were at the Gold Cup, and now you are in the All-Star Game. We had Max Arfston on the show last week, and he said you guys got really close. How excited are you to be back with a bunch of the guys who you spent such a long time with this summer, back in the environment in All-Star?
Yeah, I know those are my boys, Freeman, Max, all these guys. They're really good guys, and just to be around them again, it's fun. And obviously spending a month and a little bit with those guys, you get close. So it's fun. It'd be great seeing them, and we want to win. We got to beat these guys.
Myself and Alejandro Bedoya loved the conversation with Sebastian, but we wanted to talk a little bit more about the experience around the U.S. national team and what it was like watching them travel from place to place and how this team grew. And of course, the big transfers that have come for a lot of the players coming out of the Gold Cup over in Europe. So we had Ryan Tolmich on from Goal, who was able to watch this team really come together, especially under the veteran leadership now of Chris Richards.
It was one of the things he said. He told me, he's like, look, I want to be captain. I want to wear the armband. I want to be someone that's not just on the roster. I want to be a big part of the roster.
So we have those two interviews and a lot more coming up here in the US Soccer Podcast. Well, we are so lucky here at the U.S. Soccer Podcast to continue to celebrate the summer that was for the U.S. men's national team and the big event coming up in Texas. It is the MLS All-Star Game. It is going to be on later today, and we have someone who has been in the Gold Cup and now will play in the All-Star Game once again. Last week, it was Max Arfston. This week, it is the man himself, the free kick specialist, Sebastian Berhalter. Sebastian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So we've got a lot to talk to you about. A great summer that you've had so far, great season you've had with Vancouver, the All-Star Game coming up. But first, we want to dig into your background a little bit. Starting with, you were technically born in England. So the question is, do you have any Britishisms? Do you have any British phrases that have snuck their way in?
I got nothing. I lived there for 2 years. I'm definitely pretty American. I have no accent. I have literally nothing.
Now you've been in Canada, though, for a couple of years. Have you picked up a couple as?
Nah, not honestly. I try to stay away from those. We got some Toronto accents, which are special, really special accents, but nah, not too much.
You grew up in Columbus. You said it. You moved at a young age. Now you've made your name in Vancouver. You're wearing the Whitecaps gear right now. It's probably not a city you thought about a lot before you got there. What does Vancouver mean to you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's home. I've lived there the last 4 years. It's a team that took a chance on me. Not a lot of teams were willing to. And yeah, it feels like home. It's nice. You have, a bunch of friends there now, and great people at the club. So it's a nice spot to be.
It is going to be one of the 20...
Speaking of Vancouver, if I can jump in here, we know it's going to be a 2026 World Cup host city. Very exciting times. What should people know about going to Vancouver for a game?
Yeah. Well, I think the scenery will blow you away. I think that's something that, unless you actually get there, obviously being American, you don't know too much about Canada, but once you're in Vancouver, I think you realize how beautiful the city it is. And then it's a great downtown. I think, it's modern. There's a lot of places to go eat. It's a fun place to be, and it's an up and coming place. And yeah, I feel, again, it's a place I'll look back probably in 10 years and be like, wow, I can't believe, I lived in Vancouver for that long.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to visiting Vancouver later this year when we face off against you guys. My wife is from Norway, so it's similar in terms of the nature of the mountain and the beautiful views there on the water. And how much fun has this season been for you, though, with the success of the team, how well you're doing personally, obviously the team as well, but and you play such a vital role for the team. So how fun has this season been for you guys and for you?
Yeah, no, it's been good. Obviously, having that Champions League run is, you want to play in finals. Those are the games you want to play in. So, making it all the way there was great. Obviously, losing is not what you want, but yeah, it's been a good start, and we really haven't done anything yet. We haven't won a trophy. We're just halfway through the season, so just over. So we still got a long way to go. We have 2 competitions that obviously Canada Cup and MLS Cup that we want to win. So we still have work to do.
It's been a special season for you, though. It's been a breakthrough season. What's changed in your game to lead to this success, or what's changed in your mentality and what you've done to be able to go out there and contribute the way you have?
Yeah, I think Jespers came in and kind of give me that freedom and that confidence to be myself. Especially going forward, wants me to be a lot more involved in the attack, and I think previously I didn't have that as much, and honestly not sure if I knew I could do it, and really play that role in the attack. So he's given me that confidence and to go and kind of be myself, and fight for the team, and both sides of the ball, work my butt off, and then also trying to help them get goals and assists. So it's been fun.
That play with the club team has earned you the spot in the All-Star game. But before we get there, we want to talk about the Gold Cup and what happened, which finished in Texas, and now you're back in Texas. You've been around the USMNT your whole life through your dad. What was it like representing the team in a tournament you've known so well as a supporter and a family member, but not as a player?
Yeah, I mean, dream come true. I there's not even words to describe that feeling, especially putting on jerseys for the first time. Singing the national anthem, it couldn't have meant probably any more to me. I don't think I'll have a better moment in my career, honestly. I feel like that first time is something that's so special. And yeah, obviously, you never want to lose to Mexico, especially in a final. I think watching the games over the years, being a fan, that's, I know that, and it was tough, definitely losing that game. But yeah, no, I think we'll be back, and it was just such an honor being able to represent my country.
Yeah, you talked about being a fan of the national team, but I feel like, your last name, right? It carries a little weight on it, right? What is the feeling like representing the Berhalter name on the international stage where it's meant so much, do you feel pride? Obviously, a great pride, I'm sure. Pressure, confidence. What are those feelings like?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the same as any other last name. My dad's my dad, my mom's my mom, my family's my family, and I don't look at it any other way. And I feel fortunate that I have, my dad who's, been through it as a player and has been around as a coach. So obviously, he really fortunate that he helps me out in certain scenarios, and, he's been there for most part. But yeah, no, for me, I'm just, I'm a kid playing soccer. I don't try to make it any bigger than it is. Just try to go make my family proud and people around me proud. So it's not much different.
We found out after you made your debut for the team that you're the 8th, though, combo, father-sons, whether it's head coaches or players with the USMNT. Did you talk to any of those other pairings? Is there a group chat or a WhatsApp of father-son duos?
No, I don't think so. There's not a group chat. It is cool though, to be the 8th father-son duo. I think, growing up, that was always my dream to follow my dad's footsteps. So it's definitely a proud moment for the family.
What about your siblings? Do you have any? Are your sisters play as well?
Yeah, I have 3 younger sisters. We got cross country, my youngest one. The middle one plays soccer. She's hopefully will go to the college soccer, and then my oldest one, she's in senior in college. She doesn't play, but she's starting to work now. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we have others, hopefully.
I think I've been told that during COVID you went back home and were training with your family. Was these high intense sessions?
Yeah, this was it was probably one of the toughest moments of my career, but also the best for me. I needed to go kind of get beat up a little bit and a little bit of reality check. It was tough. My dad just kind of said, all right, let's see what you got. And he just ran me to the ground. And I'm super fortunate that he even, had the time to do that. And obviously he was busy still then, with his stuff. So, and my sister, she joined in too, and she, not all the time, but he would push her too. So it's definitely one of the most important times of my career so far.
If your sister comes and joins in, she's like, I only want to do the fun stuff, just the finishing drills, just the good stuff?
I'll make sure she's doing all of it. If she's in it, I'm like, all right, there's no way you're not doing what I'm doing. There's no easy way
I love that. You're not taking it lightly on her, huh?
Yeah. No.
What's he like as a 1v1 coach?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I think he knows me better than anyone. So he knows how to push me, definitely, how to get underneath my skin. And, he knows when I just, needs to just chill, like he knows, when to say what. So yeah, it's great. And he's, super fortunate that he took the time and helped me become the player I am today, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, Seba, or Seb, I don't know if you're okay with me calling you that.
Whatever.
But your set piece delivery is fantastic, and it's a weapon. It's a weapon, absolutely. You've seen on corner kicks, on free kicks, and it's we have one of our own here with Philly, Kai Wagner. But I'm curious to see in terms of how much you practice, and you say you had some special somebody bring in to, I guess, work on your technique and things like that and the intent around it. Are you working ever on proposing your own set pieces and looking at, scripting up certain plays? I'm sure the first touch is always a vital thing of your set piece. You want somebody to get that first touch, but how do set plays work for you guys? Are you looking to script your own things and put something together you're on your own?
Yeah, I think it depends if the team goes zonal or man marking. It depends how many markers they have, and our set piece coach or assistant coach will kind of present that, and then he'll usually come up with at least one special, and from there we kind of work around it and see who we want. We just make little tweaks here and there. I think he kind of gives us the broad idea, and then from there it's whether it's outswinger or inswinger, whether it's a certain block or something like that, we'll kind of come up with that together. But I think he does a good job of at first, setting the blueprint, and then we kind of make little tweaks here and there.
You are you are at the Gold Cup, and now you are in the All-Star game. We had Max Arfson on the show last week, and he said you guys got really close. How excited are you to be back with a bunch of the guys who you spent such a long time with this summer, back in the environment in All-Star?
Yeah, I know those are my boys, Freeman, Max, all these guys. They're really good guys, and just to be around them again, it's fun, and obviously staying a month and a little bit with those guys, you get close, so it's fun. It'd be great seeing them, and we want to win. We got to beat these guys.
Well, speaking of the All-Star, besides Messi, everybody's fascinated with the GOAT, of course, right? Who's the one player though you'd be like most excited to play with that maybe you haven't had a chance to in the past?
And I mean, I think Jordi Alba speaks for itself. I think that's one that'd be super interesting to see. Just his technique and the way he sees the game.
Oh, you're just gonna wait for his cutback balls, aren't you?
Yeah, no, dude. I mean, it's insane. Like he just picks out from literally anywhere. But then also Bouanga, playing against him so many times, I'm just like, dude, I gotta see what this guy is like. And I've heard great things, and yeah, those two are probably up there.
Man, Vanni Sartini had you playing fullback and wingback against Bouanga. That felt unfair.
Hey, he didn't score, man. He didn't score. He didn't assist. So
there we go.
What else am I supposed to do? We've definitely had our battles. He probably can't stand me. Honestly, I'm just was all over him, but I tried to. It's impossible to contain that guy. He's a hell of a player, and but obviously, yeah, and they won. That's all that matters. So, yeah, no, he's a great player, and it'd be cool to see him up close.
You have a unique connection with the city of Austin, the host of the All-Star game. You played there, on loan, but it was for you really your first big breakout to play professionally. You were back there in the Gold Cup group stage. You had the assist against Saudi Arabia. You were only there for a year, but what do you remember about Austin? What does it represent to you?
Yeah, it's such a electric city, fun city. I think it's there's so much energy, especially within the fans of the team. They love the team to death, and it's really cool to see that. Especially my first year, results weren't always going our way, but the way the fans stuck around the team was awesome. You always got love wherever you went, and it's great to see. They're a real club in MLS. They've had their ups and downs, but they're still a big team, and it's always fun going back there.
You're playing against the Liga MX All-Stars. In this game, you have had some all-time performances in Mexico and against Liga MX teams over the course of this year in CONCACAF Champions Cup. What's different about playing against teams from Mexico?
Yeah, I think they have a little like this nastiness, that little cleverness. That's kind of fun to play against. I love playing against that because it makes you up your game, and you find ways to be a little bit. I don't know if nastier is the word, but just a little more clever, I think, in certain moments. But yeah, no, they're competitive. They always want to win, and they never take it easy. It's not like they're ever chilling. So you gotta respect that about them. Yeah, it'd be a good thing.
You went and,
And
play-
speaking, sorry. No, I was just saying, speaking of like MLS versus Liga MX, for the All-Stars, I know you're on the roster, right, for the skills challenge. Do you know which skills challenge you're doing?
Yeah, I think I'm doing the passing one. I think it's like there's like different gates. I think I chip it through a hole, whatever. So yeah, I think I'm crossing two on a couple of them, but I think that's the passing one's when I gotta do my thing.
All right. I'll be checking that out.
Ale says he would do the cross and volley. So if you cross well, you could get adopted into his legacy match.
Oh, I know Seba. Yeah, he delivers great balls, so I wouldn't have any problems with his service. But I have full confidence in my volleys, my technique, right foot, left foot, banging them in there.
I believe. I see you've been playing right back a little bit now too. So this is got a whole new dimension to your game now. There you go.
Yeah. I was able to speak to your dad about that. He tried to come at me in that side, but I held it down that game.
Yeah, I saw it. Don't worry. I saw it.
Sebastian, we're gonna let you go. We know you've got a lot to do, but first, before we were doing a little IG investigation before we got on here, and you seem to like a dramatic outfit. Like, it seems like if you're going for it, you fully go for it. I've seen kilts. I've seen old school stuff. Do we have like a costume design in the future?
Costume design, I don't know, but no, I like what I like. I like picking out clothes, and it's fun for me. It's something just I do. 10 minutes before I get ready, I'm like, what can I throw together here? And it's just a little fun part of the game that I enjoy. So no, it's yeah.
See that kilt look comes from being born in the UK,
That's Ryan Gold's wedding, man. He had us all in kilts. It was awesome.
Well, thank you to fashionista set piece specialist Sebastian Berhalter. Cannot wait to see him crush it in the All-Star game and continue to do so for Vancouver. We appreciate him taking the time to join us. Ale, you heard when we talked about Max Arvston, he brought up Alex Freeman, the other guys he's going to play with. It was, for many of these players, their first international experience this summer. For almost all of them, first true tournament. And it seems like they really bonded, and there's a real connection in this group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look, it was a fairly young team during the Gold Cup, right? Guys with a lot of, inexperience, really. But when you're with a group for 40 more days, you really bond over special moments, right? Whether it's hanging out at the hotel pools, playing card games, probably watching movies and doing stuff, silly things in the hotel. It's one way to get to know one another, off the pitch, which, kind of translates to on the field and how you play and working on those partnerships. We've heard that him and Max got really along really well. Alex Freeman, some other guys as well. So I think, look, Gold Cup is a special opportunity, not just for guys to show and press on the field, but also, to connect off of it as well. And I think I've been really impressed with Sebastian, seeing him play. Vancouver's been a very fun team to watch. I don't get to see him as often maybe as some of the other guys on the West Coast or guys like yourself do, but the times that I've seen him play, they play some really entertaining football. And Sebastian has been at the heart of a lot of their stuff, right? And he's a key cog there for them. Everything goes through him, really. And whether it's transitioning from defense to offense or offense to defense, he's there chasing, covering lots of ground, breaking up plays. And then you can't talk about him without mentioning set pieces, right? Because that's such a big tool. And his set piece delivery, off of corner kicks and free kicks is fantastic. He puts the ball on a dime wherever, Brian White might be or whoever else he's aiming for. That's a gift, and he's been a joy to watch, and I'm looking forward to see how he progresses.
I would assume if we had Chris Richards on, he would say Sebastian's one of his favorites on the team as well, because he's been feasting on those set pieces in the Gold Cup, and it is such an DNA and identity of U.S. men's national teams in the past, and it felt like that really came to a fore at the Gold Cup. Nice to hear him and Alex Freeman be friends. It means they both are not too mad at each other for whether they're defending or attacking, covering for each other along that right wing. They were a huge part of the team. So, yeah, good to hear that they're friends and that they're able to get through all those battles and continue with their relationship. Well, once again, thank you so much, Sebastian, for taking the time. We have talked to many of the people who were at this summer's Gold Cup, the full 40 days. We talked to Max Arfston last week and, of course, Sebastian Berhalter here today. Now we're going to talk about them, put them in the other room, and now we can discuss about those players. And to do so, we've got one of the best in the business, the U.S. soccer writer at Goal, Ryan Tolmich, joining me. Ryan, what's up, man?
Nothing, man. It's like you said, it's been a wild summer, a long summer of traveling and following all the things that were going on with this U.S. men's national team program at the Gold Cup. And, like you said, it's an exciting time between that, transfers, everything going on. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Max said his big learning lesson from the summer was he should have packed more clothes. How did you do on the laundry front of things?
That was rough. That was the difficult part. Fortunately, I did have a quick 2-day stop back home in between the group stages and the knockouts, so I was just able to survive without having to buy too much extra. But yeah, navigating that was rough. I will say that was one of the more difficult parts of navigating this summer's road trip.
It was an epic summer. The two friendlies into the Gold Cup, as I said, 40 days front to back. You were at every single game in that Gold Cup. What was the experience like of just watching this team sort of tour the country, watching the fans interact with it, and watching as things grew and it sort of became a group more and more?
Yeah, it was a different sort of experience, and it was one of the things I said when the tournament started was that I was excited to watch it because there were so many different types of stories that could get told from this summer, and that it was a different group of players, a lot of whom had different backgrounds, a lot of whom that many of us in the media hadn't interacted with as much. So that was a really interesting part of it, is seeing, one, how these guys handled their chance, and two, seeing what they were like as people going through this summer trip and seeing how this all kind of came together. So yeah, it was such an interesting summer because, like I said, it was just such a different group with different stories and different expectations. So kind of watching it all come together through the summer and getting to talk to guys and learn more about them and learn their stories, that was a really cool thing to get to do.
We knew coming in Tim Ream and Tyler Adams would be sort of the voices, the leaders, the veterans. Did anyone stand out to you, though, that, whether it's consistently talking post games or sort of being one that was settled where it was surprising to you or emerged maybe from the outside as a leader?
Chris Richards, no doubt. And it's funny because I sat down for an interview with him towards the end of the tournament, and I told him I don't think I've ever seen a player do as much media during a tournament as him, and that every single game, every single training session, he was out there ready to talk and ready to, whether it was good or bad, and he was really front and center. And to be honest, like one of the things is that was kind of by design, and that was a thing where Chris really wanted to step up and be that leader and be a voice of this team. I think he realized that he was one of the more veteran players. He realized he's coming off a trophy win with Crystal Palace where he's on a high and confident and feeling good about himself. And it was one of the things he said. He told me, he's like, look, I want to be captain. I want to wear the armband. I want to be someone that's not just on the roster. I want to be a big part of the roster. So that was one of the big storylines for me, is getting to see how Chris Richards developed as a leader, how he grew, and that's something that he's going to definitely take with him going forward, which is huge news for the U.S. because, look, the center back position has always been an interesting one. So, yeah, seeing him kind of take that leap was one of the big stories of the summer for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people walked away with, him being one of the winners of the summer, of being established on the field and clearly, as you said, established off the field. You got to watch this team travel around and play in all these markets and build through this tournament. Did it give you a taste of what next year will be like a little bit, as it's sort of this like traveling circus of USMNT?
Yeah, it was a lot. Look, the next year will be a little bit different just because the geography of it all, going LA, Seattle, LA, and it'll be a little bit more comfortable where guys can kind of be settled in one location. But look, it is the cadence of a tournament, and that, look, if something goes wrong, you got to get over it quickly, and if something goes right, you better not get too high on yourself because there's another game coming in a couple of days. So yeah, it was a good experience for everybody, I think, just getting to see what that looks like, what a tournament will look like, the day-to-day patterns of it, and the ultimate thing is that a lot of these guys hadn't experienced that before. And those that did experience it, maybe in Qatar, it was a little bit different, where you were, kind of situated in one place and had your base camp and kind of went from there. So this was a different sort of experience. The U.S. is a very big country, so seeing how everyone kind of navigated those challenges was definitely a big part of the summer, and seeing how it built ultimately to those final few games, which were pretty wild in terms of atmosphere.
We're into the MLS All-Star game this week. We talked to Max Arvston last week about the skills challenge and being there. He talked about the excitement of being back with a lot of the guys he had lived with for this month. And we talked to Sebastian Berhalter as well. They're two of the big winners, I think you would say, right, of emerging into this All-Star stratosphere via partially their USMNT play. There are 7 players coming out of the Gold Cup who were originally announced to the All-Star team. We'll talk about some that won't be here for positive reasons in a moment. But what do you make of this sort of generation now that has created itself, where they all kind of got thrown into the fire this summer, and it feels like they really coalesced as a group?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I found most interesting this summer, and that you had all of these people from different sorts of backgrounds and different sorts of experience levels, and seeing how that all meshed together. One of the interesting stories for me that I wanted to look into was the Olympic team, and how those guys kind of took the leap, and speaking to them about how they still have a group chat with everyone that was involved with that group, and they still play Clash Royale with each other. And that's kind of something that has been built with that group. And now this Gold Cup group is another version of that, and that these guys are now, they have this experience. And like I always say to people, that the experience that these guys go through with the national team is obviously unique, but it's also something that everyone can understand. And that who doesn't remember what it's like traveling with your boys, or when you're a kid, and you staying in hotels and having a good time, and they're just living that to a different level. So seeing those sorts of relationships develop, and seeing those bonds develop, that's an interesting thing to watch. And like I said, they always have this Gold Cup. This will be a part of their sort of journeys together, and they'll always have those moments where they remember. And I said All-Star Game's another one of those moments where they get to reconnect, and maybe looking down the line, September, October, November, who knows. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's one of the things about major tournaments, is that you can't really separate people from them again, because they all got to live through them together.
There's 2 players specifically I wanted to talk about. First being Diego Luna. He is sort of the fan favorite star. What did you make of watching him emerge as a national team player, and what he's like, and why maybe the fans are so in love with him?
Yeah, I think it's easy to see. Like, I don't think it takes, much to realize why Diego Luna is successful. Obviously there are aspects of his game that are incredible. Technically, his vision is great. He's very creative, but at the end of the day, like, that mentality is just different. And it's one of the things I sat with him at January camp, and that was one of the things he was really going into, was about how this year at RSL would be different because they needed more for him, and he wasn't afraid of that. That was exciting for him, that RSL was betting on him, because he bets on himself. And that's one of the things I think everybody likes, is like, you like watching a guy who says, like, I have this, I can do this, and I'm going to work my hardest to get it done. And that's something that's very relatable, that's very honest, and that's something about Diego Luna, is that he has that, but like I said, he also has the ability to back it up. So that's been a fun thing to watch, and to see his evolution go from a guy who's a fringe national team player to now someone that is pretty firmly in this group, and a guy that looks like he can make a difference, not just now but going forward.
One of the great stories of the summer was Patrick Agyemang, emerging from a D3 college soccer player to the starter for the national team, played in Hartford, minutes away from where he grew up, and now he will miss the MLS All-Star game because he is making this multi-million-dollar transfer over to England. How does it feel like that story arc has come about, and what do you make of the experience he's about to have going over?
It's even wilder for me, admittedly, as someone who also grew up in Connecticut and went to UConn nearby and visited Eastern many times, and saw that is not a soccer hotbed. He did things had to go a certain way for all of this to come together. And like I said, he's another one I sat with in January camp, and it was just like the amount of things that had to happen for this to all work was incredible. And there's so many aspects to that we could do a full show on about, talent scouting and development and all these things. But for him, it's one of those things where this is a guy that whenever he was handed an opportunity, he took it. And it took him a few more opportunities than maybe somebody who stumbles into an academy at an early age. But that's the thing, is he took it at Eastern. He went to Rhode Island, he took it. He came to Charlotte and improved himself. And then he gets on the national team in January camp and stuck around and made the most of it. So that's one of those things I think, like I said, that's another story that I think people can really look at and relate to and feel good about, because this is a guy that didn't have anything handed to him. But now, obviously, is the real challenge, and that, like, all right, you're at this next opportunity in this next test, and it's going to be a different one, and there's a World Cup a year away. It's a risk. There's so many aspects of it that I think is really interesting to watch, to see how he handles it all and how he develops going forward.
In past years, a transfer like that would have been the talk of like the USMNT fan base, but there are record numbers now being put up for other USMNT veterans. You have Malik Tillman making this move now to Leverkusen for an astronomical fee, Johnny as well. What do you make of sort of maybe the way their play with the USMNT interacts now with these opportunities in Europe, and how those two now will emerge and what they will be inside the player pool?
Yeah, like you said, this is crazy to think about. You know, if you look back a decade ago, I think everyone would have done just about anything to see these types of transfers as an American fan. You know, these are things that people dreamed about years ago, and now, you know, there's multiple in one window. Starting with Tillman, like another big winner of the summer for me. He was a guy that had a lot to prove, who hadn't really been given his chance to be the big fish in a way. He was always a good piece, but there were so many guys around him that were more experienced and had these roles and did all these things. He never got the chance to kind of be the guy, and that was a thing that I like to see this summer, is that he was like, all right, I can be the guy. He's not a vocal leader by anything, but he's out there, and he took that responsibility, which was good. So now he's off to Bayer Leverkusen, and there's obviously a different sort of level and pressure. But the thing is with him, you have to remember that he doesn't really know anything different, and that his career path is Bayern to Rangers to PSV. And it's like, yeah, you're not allowed to lose at any of those clubs. Yeah. So I don't think he'll be too fazed by that. But yeah, I feel like this was a really, really life-altering summer for him in a way, because he got to show what he could do with the national team. He gets his big move, and now the question is, like, can he make that leap now from being a really, really good young player to being a guy that could be an elite top-level contributor to this national team and ultimately one of the best teams in the world.
And then on the flip side, Johnny, he is this player. We heard sort of the Tottenham agreement, but now he makes the big move, and it feels like he is someone who is still trying to find his feet at times at the international level, but clearly has these skill sets that has everyone salivating.
Yeah, Johnny that's the one of the big bummers about the summer for me, was not getting to see more of him because of injury issues and everything that went on, just because he is someone that is still somewhat of a mystery on the international level, and that we've seen plenty of caps and things like that, but we haven't seen him get like that extended run where you're going to play and you're going to do this and you're going to figure things out. And it felt like this summer could have been that. And it's a bummer that it wasn't, because like you said, when you do watch him on the club level, like there's a reason Atletico Madrid just dropped a bunch of money to bring him into the midfield. And there's a reason that someone like Diego Simeone looks at him and goes, yeah, like that's a player that I want. So it's a bummer that we didn't get to see much of that during the summer, because it would have been a huge difference. But at the end of the day, look, like I said, another life-changing move for him, a chance to really make it at one of the biggest clubs in the world, one that's a Champions League final contender like every couple years. Like it's a big move for him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he takes the confidence and everything that kind of comes with being a big transfer like this and translates it to the national team when that next opportunity does come, because at the end of the day, it's coming. Like there are chances still there. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes it.
Last one for you. You said it 10 years ago, like any single one of these moves alone, if they even happen, would have been sort of the biggest story. Now you have so many. What do you make of the change in perception of the American player and opportunity for a lot of these players, especially, with the World Cup coming up that they're going to be coming off the back of?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is a lot of it is perception, just because, anyone who follows the national team knows that there were guys in the past that were also incredible players and could have played at certain levels if they had the chances that these guys do now. And now the world looks at the U.S. national team and they look at MLS and they see players and they say if they can do it there, they can do it elsewhere. And that's a huge step forward. And it's one of the things that's super interesting about this team, is just seeing how the perception has changed, and that it's not done. There's still a lot of growth to be done, and there's still a lot of things to sort out. But now it feels like an American player has a chance, which is really cool. A guy like Patrick Agyemang could go from college and score a bunch of goals in MLS and then, get a look in England. That's a big deal, and that's really cool. So that's one of the things that that's my big takeaway is like, look, man, like any of these guys, no matter where you're playing, whether you're playing at a lower level, a high level, it's if you perform, there are people watching you, and there's a chance you can make it to the national team, or you can make it to Europe, or like whatever it is. So that's kind of where we're at, where there's now this opportunity, but also this pressure, because when people are watching, you need to show your best. So that's the interesting thing. The stakes have been raised. So that's the fun part about all of this, is watching how that's come together, and now how these guys are going to be able to respond to it, because this is what's going to be happening from now on.
Well, it was an epic summer of soccer. It seems like it doesn't end. Now we're talking All-Star and transfers. Then we're back into it. We've got the October friendlies and the September friendlies already announced on the men's and women's side. And then you'll be back on the road trying to cover these teams, maybe across 3 different countries eventually at some point over the next year. But Ryan, appreciate you taking the time. Go read his work at Goal. Go follow him on social media. And we'll have to have you on again soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you once again to Sebastian and Ryan for taking the time to talk with us. We already have a great episode lined up for you next week to celebrate what is going to be a great celebration of the beautiful game on National Soccer Day. So for myself, Alejandro Bedoya, and everyone here, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.